guys, and welcome back to my channel and this new series that I call Journey to Med, where I'm trying my best and my very hardest to help prospective medical applicants achieve their dreams and their goals by getting into medical school. So today I'm going to do a video about the BMAT because I know that it's fast approaching. I think it's on the 4th of November or something like that. So it is fast approaching, and I'm going to be doing a video about Section 2 of the BMAT. I will be walking you guys through quickly how I prepared for Section 2 really quickly, because I think I went into more detail in another video that I've done that I'll just put in the little eye up there. And then I'm just going to walk through, I think, a few, maybe 2 or 3 bio, math, physics, and chemistry questions with you, just to show you guys how I kind of approached questions and answered the questions when I was preparing for the BMAT over a year ago now, which is just crazy to think. But yeah, so yeah, I hope that you enjoy. If you enjoy this type of content, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share this video with other with other BMAT test takers that could benefit from it as well. And all I want to say is good luck for this exam, and I hope that this video can help you. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to explaining to you guys how I prepared for the Section 2 of the BMAT, and I think that I did this in a rather how can I phrase this? A rather systematic and simple approach. The first thing that I did was that I went through the assumed knowledge guide that the BMAT consortium or the BMAT team provides for us. Basically, that's a guide where they give you, like, bullet point by bullet point, every single thing that you need to know, and under that they will explain it to you guys what you actually need to know within that topic, and provide you with like some questions that you can do throughout while reading the guide, so you can already start testing your knowledge on it. So let's say one of the learning objectives is, I don't know how to describe mitosis. Then underneath that, they're going to explain to you guys what mitosis actually is, and then maybe a few pages down the line, they're going to be like asking you a question about a specific, let's say a specific step of mitosis, for example. And so I went through this whole like assumed knowledge guide for physics, math, chemistry, and bio at least once, and then on the harder topics I read it a couple of times, made maybe a few little notes, and also went online on other resources, for example YouTube, to really understand and anchor that specific topic that I didn't really understand. And then I really quickly moved on to doing practice questions, because I felt that that was the best way for me to do some active revision, and to really understand what the BMAT examiners like to test us on, because the assumed knowledge guide is pretty enormous. And so you don't need, if you do a lot of practice questions, you know what are kind of the high yield, let's say, topics that come up again and again. And right now, honestly, I don't remember what they were because it was over a year ago, but what before the BMAT, I knew kind of what topics could come up, the ones that were most likely to do so, at least. And so what I would do, I would do a lot of practice questions. So that was the bulk of my time, doing either just practice questions untimed, practice questions timed, and also like full-on practice papers that I would do, like 27 questions, let's say, in 30 minutes, I think, for Section 2. And then I would spend a lot of time like correcting it. I would really spend a lot of time to correct the answers and understand exactly why my answer was correct or why my answer was incorrect. Even if my answer was correct, I wanted to make sure that the way I reached that answer was the correct and the quickest way. So I think that's really what helped me really improve in Section 2. And also, I just wanted to finish this first section of the video by saying that right now I know that the BMAT is in less than a week approximately when this video will be posted, and so if you are still like hung up on trying to understand the concepts, please move on to doing practice questions and do the bulk of your time for that and correct them, because that is only when you're going to really see your scores improving. You need to have the practice, and you need to put in the reps in. It's like exercise. You need to do a lot of reps before you can see your muscle change. So that's exactly the same thing. So really start doing practice questions now if you still haven't done so, if that is not like the priority right now, make it the priority. So yeah, I think I'm done with this section, and now we can move on to the next. Okay, so now that I've finished explaining to you guys how I prepared for this section of the BMAT, I'm now going to move on to showing you guys and walking you guys through some questions, a selection of questions, so bio, math, chem, and physics questions from the past paper of 2012 from the BMAT. Hopefully Not as many people have done the 2012 one, but if you have, then it might be an opportunity to see other ways that you could have approached the questions. And yeah, so I'll just go now to showing you guys how I do it, and we will start with this bio question here. So how do I approach this bio question? The way I approach it was that I would always read the question. So which one of the following could result in a homeostatic response? And then read here, you know, like the answer options, because in the BMAT, they like to give you like one overarching question, give you a multiple like possible answers, and then here in the questions ask you which combination of the options, the initial options here, are actually correct. So the way I did this to not get myself confused was that I would always read the question first, as I've just done, and then read the answer options and not look at the question, not look at the answers, because I wanted to figure out the answer on my own first and then find the answer within the answer options, rather than try to read the answers and then see if it fits or not. Like, it takes more time and it also confuses you more. Okay, so let's try to answer this question. So which of the following could result in a homeostatic response? So arise in an internal condition. Yes, that could result in a homeostatic response. For example, if your glucose levels increase, then your body's going to try to like bring them back down by transforming it into glycogen, etc. So yes, this. A reduction in internal condition. Yes, if your glucose levels drop too low, then your body's going to try to convert the glycogen in your liver back to glucose to give you energy. So that works too. A rise in an external condition. Yes, so let's say that, I don't know, the temperature outside increases, then you're going to start sweating to make sure that your temperature stays at 37. It doesn't, you know, skyrocket to 39 or 40 because it's so hot outside. So yes, and then a reduction. Similarly, if the temperature decreases, your body's going to try to, you know, maintain your temperature at a higher level. I mean, at 37 and not, you know, be in too much of hypothermia. So all four conditions are correct. And so now I'm just going to look at the answer options here, the answers, and then see which one fits. So I said that the correct answers was 1, 2, 3, 4, and here it is. So the answer is F. Okay? Okay, so now let's move on to this chemistry question here. So they say that 2.74 grams of 1 bromobutane is reacted with excess aqueous sodium hydroxide to produce 1.1 gram of butan 1-ol, according to the equation below. And then they give you the equation and the question. What is the percentage yield of butane 1-ol? So first of all, the percentage yield is basically the amount, like for example in mass, of what the actual reaction has produced in real life, divided by what it should have produced if no product was lost at all. And then this will give you a percentage. So that's what we're searching right now. So let's do this. To find out right now, we have the mass of 1 bromobutane and the mass of our final product. So what we're trying to figure out first is the mass of the butane 1-ol in, let's say, perfect conditions where no product and no reagents are lost at all. Nothing is lost. So let's do that. The first thing we want to find is that we realize that 1 bromobutane and butane 1-ol are in the same molar proportions. Let's call bromobutane A, and let's call butane 1-ol B. It means that we can have MA over MA that is equal to MB over the big M, so the molar mass B. So, okay? Because since they are in the same molar proportions, this equation here is correct and we're allowed to write that. Okay, so right now what do we have? We have the mass of 1 bromobutane, so let's write that in first. So we have the mass of 1 bromobutane, which is 2.74 grams. But we don't have the molar mass of A and we don't have the molar mass of B, and we are searching for the mass of B. So let's do that. Let's find the molar mass of A and the molar mass of B. So how do we do that? We do that because the molar mass is just the addition of all of the atomic masses of the whole molecule. So the molar mass of A is basically 12 times 4 plus 9 times 1 plus 80. And this gives us 48. 48 plus 9 plus 80. So that gives us basically 57 plus 80, which gives us 137 grams per mole. Then we do the same thing with the molar mass for B, which is this time 12 times 4 plus 9 times 1 plus 16 plus 1. So that's basically 48 plus 9 plus 17, which is equal to 57 plus 17, and this gives us 74. So now we can do the same thing. We can just inject both of these results, grams per mole, both of these results in our equation that we had written here, our equality, let's say. So let's do that. We have 137 and then 74. So this basically means that MB is equal to 2.74 times 74 divided by 137. And this is equal to 1.48. And actually here I use the calculator, which is not authorized in the BMAT, but the way you would do this very simply is that during the exam is that you could realize quickly that 274 and 137 are actually linked numbers, meaning that 137 times 2, so 137 times 2 is equal to 274. Just that we have 2.74, so 2.74, which means that 2.74 is actually equal to 137 times 0.02. Okay, this is the way you would do it, and then you could very simply multiply 0.02 times 74 to give yourself 1.48. So that's the way you would do it during the exam without the calculator. So now we have 1.48, which is the basically the mass, so it's in grams. And we said just before that the percentage yield was basically the mass of what we have found. So the mass, let's call this mass here mass E for experimental. And then let's continue calling this mass the mass B. So this would be mass experimental over mass B. And so we have 1.1 divided by 1.5, which is equal to 11 over 15. And to do this, you could do the actual answer of 11 over 15, if you use a calculator, is 73.33333%. But 11 divided by 15 is not the simplest of tasks to do, so you might want to actually change 11 to 10, and then 10 over 15 is equal to a third, and this is equal to 0.666667, so which is equal to 66% approximately, and then you can just see that 66 is the closest to D for 75. So you just select D, which is the answer if you want to go a bit quicker in exams. So I hope this was somewhat clear, this explanation. Okay, so the next question that I have for you guys is a physics question here, and it says, students investigate a radioactive source. They place a detector close to a radioactive source and take 5 readings over 5 minutes. They then place a thin sheet of paper between the detector and the source and again observe the counts over 5 minutes. Lastly, they replace the paper sheet with an aluminum one and observe the counts over 5 minutes. The results are shown below. So from the results, you can see that when there's nothing, here the readings are very similar to when the paper is installed, and then when the paper is installed at that point, the readings drop quite substantially. So for this question, you would have to remember this diagram, meaning that alpha waves do not pass through paper. Then beta waves do not pass through aluminum, and then gamma waves do go through aluminum. So from what we can see here is that when we go from nothing to paper, there is no decrease in the amount of waves or radiation passing through, which then suggests to us that there is no alpha waves, because if there was alpha waves, a bunch of the alpha waves would be stuck in front of the paper and nothing would then pass through here. Nothing would pass here. So there's no alpha. So we can then eliminate answer E, answer D, and answer A. Then what we can see though is that there is a drop between paper and aluminum, which gives us the sense that a lot of beta waves here were stuck just in front of the aluminum. So this means that there is beta. So it cannot be gamma only, so C has to be eliminated. So now, was there also gamma waves? That's the last question. And the answer is yes, because in the end here, even though the numbers have decreased drastically, there are still some radiation that's picked up by the detector, meaning that some gamma waves have been able to pass through the aluminum and still be detected by the detector that's here. So the answer would be F for that one. Okay, now my next question is a math question, and here it is. A formula which connects the going, G, with the rise of stairs is in a staircase is below. So that's the formula. Rearrange the formula to give R in terms of G. So the first thing we have here is I'm gonna do this live with you. So we have G equals to 5 plus 7, 9 minus R. This is like to the power of 2 plus 9, and all of this is like this. So what we have to do now is we have to do G minus 5 and all of this to the power of 2, so we can get rid of the root. So we have 7, 9 minus R to the power of 2 plus 9. Then we can do G minus 5 power of 2 minus 9 equals 7, 9 minus R to the power of 2. So then we can do G minus 5 to the power of 2 minus 9 divided by 7. It's 9 minus 5 to the power of 2. Then we do the roots of all of this. The square root, 5 minus 9 over 7, the square root is equal to 9 minus 5, minus 5, which therefore means that R is equal to 9 minus G minus 5 to the power of 2 minus 9 over 7, this whole thing like that. And so the answer, this is basically answer E. I hope you understood, that you were able to follow. I think I did this quite quickly, but basically it's just a bunch of, to do this, you really have to just practice and understand how you go from one way to the other. Like if it's to the power of 2, then you have to do the square root on the other side. If it's a plus, then you do a minus. But this should normally be not too difficult. So that's the answer there. It's answer E. Then we have another bio question that we are going to do here, which is basically the left diagram shows a plate containing a jelly with one species of bacterium evenly spread through it. Placed on the jelly are 3 discs called P, Q, and R. They have been treated as in the key. So P is a disc with antibiotic at a quarter strength, then the Q is at a half strength, and then the R is at a full strength. So basically, the thing that you have to understand here is that the bacteria is everywhere around. So everything that I'm doing green is the bacteria, and what I'm putting here in red is basically the antibiotic that's going to try to neutralize that bacteria. Okay. So, yeah, exactly. Colonies of bacteria here. So which of the following is/are possible explanations for the result? So 1, antibiotic at strengths X and half X are equally as effective. So we can see here that the initial Q, the initial circle of antibiotic or oval, has increased to this, meaning that it was able to still neutralize quite a bit of bacteria, all of these ones here. But we realized that the R, which was at full strength, whereas the Q was at half strength, has also been able to neutralize the same number of bacteria. So both of these are equally as effective. So 1 is correct. Then 2, bacterial resistance to this antibiotic occurs at all strength. This is wrong because bacteria does not resist with Q or R because the circle has increased. However, for P, the circle has not increased at all. It has stayed the same as initially here. So it has antibiotic resistance. The resistance to the bacteria does resist to the antibiotic at a quarter strength. Then S may represent the maximum distance the antibiotic has diffused out of the disc, and that also is correct because it's not a very strong word. It's not like it is 100%. It may represent, and yes, it could represent the maximum diffusion of this antibiotic in this disc. So the answers would be 1 and 3, and that is answer E. Then the next question we have here is a physics question. So let's read that. The microwave generated in a microwave oven travel through the air at the speed of light, so 3.0 times 10 to the power 8, with a wavelength of 12 centimeters. They pass through plastic food containers, but at a reduced speed of 2.0 times 10 to the power of 8 meters per second. What are the wavelength and frequency? So here there are two different questions, wavelength and frequency of these microwaves as they pass through a plastic food container. So the first thing that we can do here is calculate the frequency, because the frequency doesn't change based on like the wavelength that's sent in. Like the frequency will always stay the same. It doesn't change. So let's do that first. So we know that speed is equal to frequency times wavelength. So frequency is equal to speed over wavelength. So frequency is equal to 3.0 times 10 to the power 8 divided by 12 times 10 to the power minus 1 to have the centimeters in meters. And that basically gives us, let's do it separately. So 3 divided by 12 is basically 1/4. So that's 2.5. And then on the other side here, 10 to the power of 8 divided by 10 to the power of minus 1 is actually 10 to the power, multiplied by 10 to the power of 9. So times 10 to the power 9. So this result here is for the frequency, so in hertz. And so let's find it in the table. So we have it here and we have it here. So the only options that we can choose from is either B or G. And so we have to figure out the wavelength now to find out our answer. And at this point, if you have no time, just select a random one and come back to it at the end if you have time, because you've already been able to really decrease your answer options drastically. So you now have a 1 in 2 chances of getting it right. But we have time today, so let's do it. So we know, as we have written here, that speed is equal to frequency times wavelength. We also know that the frequency is unaffected by a change of medium. The frequency will always stay the same. So, But we know that the speed in our case has reduced. It went from 3.0 to 2.0. So if the speed reduces, the frequency stays the same. What must happen to the wavelength? The wavelength must also decrease. So if the wavelength decreases and it was at 12 centimeters initially, our answer cannot be 18 because 18 would be an increase in the wavelength, so our answer must be B with a wavelength of 8. So at that point, you have really done it quickly. You haven't had to do any other type of calculations, and that really allowed us to do it quicker. So that's a little tip for you. And then I think we are arriving at our two last questions for today, which is the first one, a bio question with a pedigree. So, what is the minimum number of people shown in the family pedigree who must be heterozygous for the two situations described in the table in the absence of any new mutations? So what I remember was that when I read this question for the first time, I was very, very confused. I was like, what does this mean? But the only thing that this means is basically like we have to figure out the minimum number of heterozygote people in the family. So heterozygote means like both of the alleles are different. If we want only you, so this individual here, only you to have the recessive condition. So let's call recessive a small r and then the dominant allele a capital letter R. So if we want you here, we want him to be RR. This means that both of his parents must be RR, RR, because he needs to get it from both of his parents, or her, I forgot, she needs to get it from both of her parents to actually have the recessive condition. Now, this person here must have gotten her recessive gene from one of her parents. So let's say RR for her to get it, and this one could very well be RR, and this one then could be RR2. Hypothetically, it's not the only solution, but we want the minimum number of people to be heterozygote. So here, in this situation, we would need a minimum of 1, 2, 3 heterozygote individuals to have you with a recessive condition, okay? So then this means that we need 3, so let's see. 3 is either E or F for only you. So all of this we can forget, and we can also forget about this. So now let's do the same thing that we have done, but this time with the new condition. What's the new condition? That only R and U show a recessive condition. So U is again RR, and R is also RR, I mean the small r. Okay, so this therefore means that S has a capital R and also the recessive gene, the dominant gene, and the recessive gene as well for T, the father. But if individual capital R, this individual here, has the recessive condition, it means that both of his parents must have also the recessive gene within their alleles. So it means capital R and lowercase r. So the minimum number in this situation is 1, 2, 3, 4 different individuals, and so our answer is E. And now let's move on to the final question for today, which is a chemistry question. So a mixture of C2H4 and H2 is placed in a sealed container. Some finely divided nickel is added as a catalyst to the mixture. The temperature rises to 150 degrees and the two gases slowly react to give C2H6. Which rows of the table correctly identifies how the pressure changes after the nickel is added? So to answer this question, we're actually going to have to use a formula that I think you need to know for the BMAT, which is P, so pressure, times V, so the volume, equals to N, which is the number of moles, times R, which is a fixed number, which I think is equal to 8.91, times the temperature. Okay, so now let's answer this question. It says that the temperature rose, okay? started to rise, and then two gases slowly started to react to form C2H6. So the formula was C2H4 plus H2 gives us C2H6. Okay? So initially, if the temperature rises, okay, temperature rises. This therefore means the volume, this volume is constant. They're in a sealed container. It doesn't change. R is also constant. They're in a sealed container. And initially, N here will not change so much because we're at the beginning of the reaction, so there's still an abundance of moles initially. So if the temperature rises, then the pressure will rise as well. So initially, there will be an increase in pressure. So all of this we can say bye-bye to. And then what happens now if we, during the course of the reaction? So during the course of the reaction, now the temperature rose, but during the course of the reaction, we have this that's going on. We have 1 mole plus 1 mole will transform or give us 1 mole of this. But this means that the number of moles that we have will actually start to slowly decrease because they're forming, 2 different moles will now form into only one separate mole. I don't know if it makes sense, but we have like 1 mole of C2H4, 1 mole of H2 that give us only 1 mole of C2H6, if that makes sense. So the number of moles decreases. This still stays the same. The temperature has now somewhat stabilized at 150 degrees. The volume is still the same, still hasn't changed. So now the pressure, if the number of moles starts to decrease, the pressure will now have to decrease as well. So the pressure will start to decrease, and so our answer option is E. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful. I'm finished answering the questions. I think I answered a couple of each, maybe math. I might have only done one. I'm not 100% sure. But I hope this was helpful, that you were able to maybe get a few tips and tricks on how to approach the questions, how to maybe do the calculations quickly, because the BMATs, they know that you don't have the calculator. So they're always going to help you, give you numbers that work well together. So let's say they're going to give you a number that's the double of the other, but there's just a few different, there's a comma or there's a decimal point that makes it a bit more confusing, but it shouldn't be that much more confusing. Just be aware of these things, and you should be okay. Don't stress too much on exam day. Just remember the theory, remember that you've practiced enough. Continue practicing until the day of the exam. Continue doing questions in a timely manner, so that could also really help you for the exam to be able to pace yourself while you're going. And yeah, also what you might have also realized is that the biology questions are very straightforward. So if you're struggling with one of the sections, please then focus on biology just to make sure that you know the content in bio, so you can at least grab all of those bio points and still bump your score up if, for example, you don't really do well in math questions or in chemistry questions. So yeah, I hope that this video was helpful. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share this video with other people and other BMAT test takers that could benefit from it as well. And yeah, I don't have anything else to say. Until next time, thank you for watching.